You're welcome back.
So what was your childhood dream?
My childhood dream? Becoming a pilot. I failed pretty badly.
What have been your greatest achievement so far?
That's a good question, actually. I think to have failed over and over again and still keep on trying.
Cool. So the other question is like, what is success to you?
What is success to me? It's actually fairly easy. Being happy and doing what you really like doing. It's not monetary, nothing at all. It's just really like to find what you actually want to do.
What has been the greatest challenge so far in your life?
That's a good question. The greatest challenge so far in my life. I think there is not really like one great challenge that stands out. It's much more in living like in different places and starting all over again from scratch whenever you go to a new place, like finding friends, finding an apartment, a place where you can live and so on. Each of that is a challenge on its own. And being able to do it again. Because it's easy to do it once, but do it again.
What has been a defining moment in your life?
Many. I think I grew up like with a childhood which is like very normal on the Austrian countryside. The real difference when my mind started to thinking like in a different way is like when I came into my first job and started flying away. So staying basically in a foreign country, having to build up things there and just basically running a project and then come back into your own country from time to time. And really see how you started to think different, how you see your own country.
What fuels your creativity?
People, the environment I'm in, and I think sports has a lot to do, but also there's an awful lot of possibilities nowadays that you have to get information, and I think it's also got a lot to do with where you want to go in the future. It's like what's your vision? What is it that is in you? This fire that is burning in you, and that is fueling a lot of my creativity because I'm interested in many different things.
So what burns inside?
What burns inside? I think from the early stages of my childhood, like one of my big, I don't know if it's correct to say passion, yeah, but it's like there's a certain thing about like this world that we live in, the people as well as the animals and everything, and when I look out there, it's like we human beings that very often we tend to just like whip things off the table. It's like it's not important, someone will take care of it. I think what's really burning in me is like seeing this sensation when we're doing the right things and making sure that we make this world like really a nice place to live and not have all these like imbalances and not taking care of like the climate or the environment and stuff like that.
What would you like to achieve with your work and life?
A lot, and I think a lot of it is related to what we started together, or where I joined later, the team of Dreama Academia, enabling people to really do what they do and being part of that. Because when you're an entrepreneur and when you're doing your own things, a lot of it is receiving help by others, and receiving this care. It's not so much the care; it's much more like someone takes you by the hand and really moves you forward, gives you some sort of guidance, and once you're a little bit older and with more experience, it's easier for yourself to give it back.
What advice would you give to aspiring talents?
I think the easiest advice that I have is
Klar, ist nicht wahr. Ja, nee. Das ist ja unglaublich. Das ist ja echt unglaublich. Das ist ja echt unglaublich. Sorry, aber das...
Back to the question.
What advice would you give to aspiring talents?
I think the easiest advice that I really have is stay focused and never allow anyone, or really anyone out there, to kind of discourage you to fulfill what is in you. If you're really convinced that this is it, then go for it.
What is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen?
The most beautiful scene I've ever seen. Oh. I think it's hard to just like pick out something now, but I think one of those moments is really like my sister is a good example of like someone who's like who's having like this vision in her mind that she wanted to be like really on the top in kickboxing now. 8 world championship titles later and a couple of like European and national titles, I think you can really say it's like having seen her succeed for the very first time when she had her very first professional fight was something very special, because you could see there was something in her which made her very, very happy.
What would you do if you have only 30 days to live?
I think one of the things that I find like really beautiful about this planet, and that's what I said before, is like people, but also like what the planet itself has to offer. So in a certain way, of course, there's always like this thing in me where I'm a globetrotter, and I'd like to kind of like see and visit different places. But the other thing is like, if that's the case, then you're doing it only for yourself. So it's kind of like egoistic. The other thing is like with all this technology we have around nowadays, I'd like to pass my legacy on to people. Give them something that they can take along for themselves, and whatever it is, learnings and all sorts of stuff. So at least they get something back, what I got.
Who has influenced you?
An awful lot of people. Of course my parents, because I think like they are very much like with their feet on the ground. Like I said, I grew up on the countryside, which is very good for me when I'm going like to those big cities and you're seeing like San Francisco, the capital of tech, with all the venture capital and so much money flowing around. I'm not influenced at all, or I'm not really taken by it. Friends, all those people like you. Let's say people who represent the same values that I have. And those values, by the end of the day, were laid into my childhood nest, if you want so, by my parents and those people who were around me back then.
What inspires you?
A lot of things. So I'm more inspired because I think my nature, and that seems to be similar by my sister, is more in sports. I'm not very much or not so much inspired by people who have made it like in tech, like this typical Steve Jobs or Richard Branson. I'll rather take the learnings from them than being inspired. It's like the inspiration comes more from me, from a different perspective. It's like Pascal Finette said it once nicely. It's like you're running a marathon, and it's very hard to finish it. So the marathon is like a hard model of proving yourself in achieving your vision, and it gets harder the longer you run. It gets really hard by the end of it. So the inspiration comes really out of that and taking that.
Cool. What is your dream now?
My dream now. So if you want to, we've embarked on an endeavor with Recompose, where we're dealing with music technology, we know that music just, and most people will agree most probably with that music has a big influence in our life. When we're watching a movie, there are certain emotions tied to it, happiness as well as sadness, depending on what is on screen. We do know that music has certain influences on health, on how we perceive things and so on. So the mission that we set out, and that's the dream for now, let's say, in the, still I wouldn't say in the interim, it's still like a long way to go, is to give people a tool that allows them to be happier and to be more motivated. That would be really cool if we achieved that.
So the last question is not a question, it's just like open space for whatever comes.
Whatever comes. I think I've seen like very often life turning in directions, like once it turns upside, once it turns downside. So it's really, you can never be prepared what happens tomorrow. But I think that's the beauty of it. And in my personality, or like in my character, it has left certain traces. Some of them were, of course, not a nice experience, whereas others are like cooler experiences. But you learn to deal with it, and you learn to deal with it like on an easier basis. So I'd like to say it's like, I don't want to say like nothing can stop me now, yeah? But I'm convinced that we can achieve our dream, and that's really the coolest thing. Once you have that confidence in you, it's amazing what can happen.
Thank you, Rudy. Great interview.